And yes, we are live. Yes. Um, welcome to welcome to Youth Rugby Discussion, a podcast that this focuses primarily on USA Youth Rugby Union. Though some of us might sit on different boards in the Northeast, which is where we are located, we don't necessarily speak for any of the boards that we sit on. It's basically us just sitting around discussing issues that are relevant to youth rugby. We're very lucky this week. We are going to continue our series on pathways and opportunities for young ruggers, youth, to play at an advanced level. And we're exploring everything, what that means. And for this week, we are very excited to have Atlanta 7's Rugby. And as a guest, we have Jack Foley with us. So, what we're going to do is we are just going to introduce ourselves from the top of the order down so that everybody can put a face or a sound to the name. So why don't we start at the top?
Hi, yes, this is Coach Allen from the Rentham Barbarians. As I say, I think every week grew up playing rugby from in the UK, moved to the US, and carried on hanging out with rugby people.
Hey, I'm Chris. Call myself Rugby Dad for this podcast. I'm going to keep it short and say just looking to learn and contribute through this rugby community.
Yeah, this is Jack Foley. I'm currently the boys U18 director for Atlantis. I've been playing since I was a freshman in high school back in 1989 and transitioned to coaching the last few years and just looking to continue the game.
This is Kate McCabe. I've played and coached around the New England area for quite some time, but right now I'm primarily the coach of the Belmont High School girls rugby side. So that's it.
This is Matt Panola. I started playing rugby in high school here in Massachusetts. Played university, played men's levels, now play old boys level, and I'm currently the head coach of Marshall High School Rugby here in Massachusetts.
Hey everyone, this is Shaggy from. I'm president and coach of the South Shore Sharks Youth Rugby Organization. I'm also with Mass Youth Rugby Organization as clerk, and I got kids that play. Good times.
I am Skylar. I am a high school rugby player for the Boston Irish Wolfhounds.
I'm Steve Cygnus, coach with the Rentham Barbarians, and lucky enough to coach most of my kids in our youth program, which I've been involved with since 2013.
Fantastic. And so, as I mentioned, we are going to continue exploring what it means or what options, what pathways, opportunities there are for youth rugby to take their sport, to take their play to a higher level. And we're exploring what higher level means. And to do that, we have Atlantis USA 7's Rugby Jack Foley with us. Jack, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Introduce Atlanta Sevens, and know and be aware that throughout our discussion, you are just going to get accosted by us we're going to ask you questions. We're going to try to tie in what you're saying to what we know. Does that make sense, Jack?
Yeah, no, the total sense. The Atlantis, at least on the youth end, Atlantis as an organization has been around since '86. Started by Steve's dad, Emil, just as a way to develop players for the U.S. team. Long story short, in 2014, there was an opportunity to start up U18 boys and girls. There wasn't a lot of Las Vegas was going on, and Salty at that point was coaching the U.S. boys team and was kind of not getting a ton of competition. So we started, and then that first year with the Washington Loggers come down, a bunch of Canadian sides come down. 2014, and then since then we've really kind of grown it from finding those first 12 boys and girls players to we have now we're ready to send to Tropical and to Utah. I think 5 boys sides and 4 girls sides, and really trying to develop a program and expanding camps and doing some regional camps. We're down in Charlotte. Really, what we're trying to do, though, as an organization, is just simply teach, if that makes sense. Find kids who are high performance in the sense that they really want to be good rugby players, not necessarily that athleticism's first, though that's a key indicator. But finding kids who want to get better and making them better, knowing that in high school, at the end of the day, we're punting them off either to a D1A program or, if those kids end up going to some kind of pro league, great for them. But really just about, getting those 14 to 18-year-olds and making them better over a 4-year period, as much as we can.
Oh, that's fantastic. So help me understand, and other people that might be in the situation that I am. So we've the Free Jacks came to town, and we're super excited. And a Free Jacks camp academy has started, and they're offering X, Y, and Z. Our Atlanta USA 7's rugby, is that an academy? Is that a select side? What is, or maybe you started as
Yeah.
something and now you're a lot more. But could you help me, put in my
So,
tiny pea brain, what understand what you are?
yes, and we're in the process of trying to define that too. But I think the best way to look at it, if you look at the word academy, you're dealing with something that's regional. A kid can drive to. Maybe he goes to a session every week or 2 weeks. Similar model you see in soccer, with soccer, lacrosse, girls field hockey, that sort of stuff. And then you have like U18 level teams, right? National level teams. We're kind of in the middle. And what we're trying to do, we have a network of coaches, and we're trying to run every year, add an additional camp, if that makes sense, to our calendar. And then simply identifies players that we can put into a pool that we can take on tour. When we go on tour, we show up Tuesday night. And so the kid trains with us for 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and then there's a tournament Friday, Saturday. And our thought process is long term, if we can get a U14 kid into our player pool that can go to 2 or 3 camps and 3 or 4 tournaments a year from 9th through 12th grade, from an hour standpoint, instructional standpoint, time standpoint, that we're looking at that as kind of a development model, if that makes sense. And that allows him then to still go play for his Free Jacks Academy or Rugby PA or New York, whatever selects or regional sides are going on there, and then being kind of pulled out for Atlantis to go on these high performance tours. Does that make sense?
Oh, that absolutely does. That actually sounds that sounds fantastic. So what you're saying is the if I'm a parent or I'm a coach, probably a parent, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what is the best way to be able to utilize Atlantis. I love what you said, is that locally there might be an academy that my kid is involved with, on a month to month or week to week situation. But it's one thing to be able to practice rugby at a high level and have the ear and the eye of good coaches, but the other aspect of it is you want to be able to actually practice it, right? You want to actually play at that higher level, and that's the one thing that Atlantis, and I just recently understood this. That's the role that Atlantis, at least part of the role that Atlantis plays, right? Is you take these players that are putting in a lot of effort and time into becoming better rugby players, and you're giving them the opportunity to actually play and play with other players that are also
Yeah,
okay.
it's the transition to the high performance environment too, right? You get there Tuesday night, and mom and dad are more than welcome to come and stay at the hotel. But with U18s, mom and dad aren't really we don't want them around too much. If
Okay.
that makes sense. It's about trying to take the kids as best we can and say, all right, here we're getting up at 7:30 in the morning. We're having breakfast. We got our pool session. 2 training sessions. We get film, walkthroughs, like all that kind of stuff. Maybe not the intensity you're going to see if it was the U18s when they're down in New Zealand, right? Or kind of what we did with the Lions in Dubai, but at least introduces them to that kind of environment. So this is kind of what it takes. Yeah, you're fast and and you're the best player on your team, but maybe you're coming off the bench here. How do you react to that environment? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I have a question, Jack. We were lucky enough that we were going to have Atlantis come and host a camp up here in New England for what I think would be the first time Atlantis would be up here in New England. But it just brings up a question that when I think of Atlantis, I usually think of like the Mid-Atlantic player pool. I don't know if that's correct or if that's not correct, but where do you typically find your players? Is it nationwide? Is it from camps that you hold in regionally, or how does that work?
Yeah, yes. So we start out with Rugby PA. I coach Rugby PA 7's and 15's. We have contacts in South Jersey. We have a big camp every year in the fall that gets a lot of them, like New York to DC kids. And then we have a coaching. So that's number one, right? And then number two is we have a series of coaching networks, if that makes sense. Greg Shore is in Florida. We have Dan Wetzel in Texas. Other guys that played for Atlantis, if they see players in their area that just say, hey, you want to take a look at this kid, start that conversation. And then the last piece, which we just started, are these regional camps. So for example, in January, we were just down in Charlotte looking at kids. We ran a 5-hour camp. That was the idea, to come up to Boston and just run a player identification camp. Get player times, get fitness times, see some skill work, and get kind of try to expand the pool. 7's is funny because it's like Era does 15's, and there's plenty of room to put players. So 7's, we look at this, it gets tougher and tougher because there is only 12 slots on each team. But that's kind of where we're headed.
Great.
Yeah, while you're at it, one of the things that that occurred to me as you were talking earlier with Daniel is that I don't know if it's entirely clear that you can be. I mean, I think, and you can correct me if you think otherwise, Jack, that you can be part of an academy, or you can be, you can be part of a local club, and you can also be a part of Atlantis, right? Atlantis is almost like a supplement. It's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not trying to take away from the state-based organization teams or any of those. We're kind of operating on that. We're in the academy series, and really looking at this as 3 or 4 opportunities a year for the top end players to get into a high performance tour for 4 days, and get that experience.
Yeah, perfect segue. I was going to ask you, Jack, if you could talk a little bit about what the NAHS is, because when I think about Atlantis, I think about that NAHS series and where your tour goes, right? Because again, a good example would be, we recently had Northeast Academy on recently, and they're great, and they go to the New York tournament. Boys and girls both go to the New York tournament in November every year, but they don't go. They haven't gone to Tropical 7's, which you mentioned earlier. But maybe it's a good time to talk about what that series is that they were just alluding to, and where does Atlantis go? And because that's one of the things that differentiates Atlantis, I think.
Yeah, the NAHS series, it's the North American High School 7 series, is in an ideal world, a combination of the best kind of Canadian and North and American academies that come together three times a year, and we sort of play for like a shield, like I guess a tournament. But the whole idea is to try to funnel these kids. If we can get the best 12 teams within the continent, or 16 ideally, get the best players on there, and then let them feed into like I mentioned, North American Lions that go to Dubai, but really it's about them feeding into colleges, right? To get them to life, to Berkeley, to Penn State, to get them to the top tier schools, but also these are kids, they're the best ones, and they kind of, it becomes a smaller community. They sort of know each other, and especially with communication nowadays, it's just about kind of creating that next level going forward, and getting these kids to move on. That's really what the series is about. And it's about getting, organizations that are stable, I guess. I'm not on that end of it. I've tried to limit myself just to being Atlantis' coach, and I'll go to the tournament you tell me to go to. But all that being said, it's really about kind of getting the best kids, if we can, kind of to that area.
Well, I think you've been pretty successful doing that.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that you've been pretty successful at that. I was bringing up the web pages in the background. I went over to that site and I saw the standings there, and I thought, oh, there you guys are.
Yeah.
Right, right. For if not at the top, then right near the top. So that's fantastic. That
Yeah,
that
it's good. It's again, it's I think what people have to understand. It's about player development, and so yes, everything you're doing to win, but that if the kids develop correctly and kind of learn how to act correctly and learn how you're supposed to behave on tour, and how do you when you're no longer the best athlete, how do you play? All that stuff segues into winning, and that's kind of what we're trying to do is kids get away with some stuff maybe at their local club level that they can't get away with um, when they get in front of better kids.
Right, because you're no longer the big fish in a small pond. Now you're now now you're in a situation where everybody, look left, look right, look all around you. You're all excellent, and it's not a situation where you're going to carry the team or you can slack. It's you're really going for that, that the sum of its parts is greater, right, than just each individual.
Right, exactly.
That's fantastic, and you're right. I love the concept that you go on tour, both to be able to have the opportunity to play against other well put together teams or elite teams, however you want to see it, um, but just as you said, pulling you out of your area where you are super confident, meaning you can sort of fall back and not be your best. You're going on tour now. Everything's new. Now you're relying on yourself and proving to yourself and everybody around you that you belong there. That's excellent. It's that I love that. That's got to be a great recipe. Um, and I'm assuming you see these kids just shine, right? As they're mom and dad's no longer there to do stuff for them. You can see them turning into young adults.
Yeah, you do. I mean, in as much as we're we're a piece of the puzzle. I mean, development isn't simply these Atlantis or these other academies. We're just part of that piece. But yeah, the kids will get better and just playing these games where depending on where they're coming from, maybe they haven't played a game to that intensity before, and it's how do they react to all that sort of stuff. But again, it's in the back of my mind. It's all about teaching. Um, that
Yeah,
this.
can I jump in and ask a quick question as a
Yep.
add on to that? It seems to me then that like a lot of that creating that rugby ethos and really focusing on developing individual players as they hop into a really intense weekend or week or whatever also relies on having a lot of different coaches with different experiences. And perhaps even I was looking at your website earlier and it sounded like perhaps you have some like alumni that come back and work with high school kids. So can you talk a little bit about the coaches that come and work with these kids?
Yeah, I can. I mean, we have we have Juicy Zaliga and Kate Daly. I know on the girls' side are involved. Kate coaches at Penn State and Josie coaches at Princeton. Greg Shore helps us out with on the boys' side. Former Maccabee player, and then really what we try to do, between Biddy Boyle and Amel as well. What we've really tried to do is then kind of grow coaches or bring people in that we know and we can trust and we know that know the game, and just kind of grow from there. And it's really about the conversations you have. We don't have like a formal coaching training program, but we have camps and where the coaches get around and talk about some things we're doing differently each year. When we go on tour, the coaches are on tour, so they're we're back in the room talking about what is it we're trying to do and things that have changed and those sorts of things. So really good group of kind of core coaches that started the whole organization, and then a good group of guys we have and women we have supporting us.
That's awesome. Those are some great names in rugby, so it's a cool opportunity.
Hey Jack, this is Shaggy from the Sharks. So I'm wondering just how many tours would you generally be having in a year? And
Typically 3 on average. Depends year to year. The past we used to do Vegas, and then we do like a CRC tour, and then we go to Utah. We've been to Glendale. Rugby Town had a high school tournament one year. So Surfside was something that Atlantis would go to in the past, and then I know the girls every year go to New York in the fall as well.
Good times. And how do you keep the so you have a one player pool that you just maintain throughout the whole tour season, and if a player can't make it, you go to the next player. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And guys will get hurt. Kids can't make it. They can make a tournament in the February, but they can't make one in June. There's a variety of reasons that since 2014, I've yet to take the same 12 kids to the same tournament twice. So it's just a matter of player identification. And if a kid can't make it, he can't make it, and next player step up. And it's really about opportunity. And that's the one thing I think the hardest challenge sometimes is just getting these kids to understand, when you get to this point, everybody here can play. And so every kid's the best kid in their team and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes kids will get out and it's a little bit, I would say overwhelming, but it's a little bit of a shell shock. Like, wait a second, I got to be a good player as opposed to a good athlete.
Jack, do you find do the U16 sides have the same opportunities as U18? Has it gone down to that age already, or is it still mostly U18 for the tournaments you go to?
Yeah, so the tournaments we go to are U18, usually U18 through U14. U14s we started in 2019. 16s have been around for a number of years. And yeah, it's always a U16 division. What happens is the U16s up in just a general open division. And so sometimes it takes until day 2 for the games to kind of even out a little bit. But there's always some good competition, and it is what it is. U16, you're really talking kids that are 15, 14 years old.
Yeah.
You don't know where they're going to be when they're 18.
So the U14 I find interesting. I don't know that I knew Atlantis did a U14 side.
Yeah, we did. Last year was our first year.
Fantastic. And how is that? Is that the same with all the tournaments have a U14 bracket, or?
That's the thing is with U14s, and we only went to one tournament last year. I kind of let the coaches that are running it at that level, it's almost like the freshman football team. Like, you kind of leave them in their own field, let them do their thing. Because it's really at that level, even that age, be successful, but just enjoying the game. They want to come back and do it next time.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And then just to follow on with that, U16 and U14, are you finding the same opportunities for girls teams as you have for the boys?
It's a good question. I wish we had one of the girls coaches on there. I think that I don't know.
Yeah, fair.
They didn't have the U14 last year. And I think it's like anything. I don't know. It's a numbers game, right?
Sure.
If there's enough players, it can happen. And then if not, just keep trying to grow the game.
That's exciting though. U14 7's. That's super.
That's cool. Very, very cool.
So Jack, sorry.
No, you go.
Kate. Okay, sorry. Yeah, Jack, quick question. So, and again, I'm not as familiar with Atlantis as maybe some people on the call is, but so from what you were saying, you get together on tours from Tuesday night and you play through to the tournament or train through to the tournament, but then you go look at the results and you guys are obviously incredibly successful. So how does that work? How can you turn from, kids potentially really not knowing each other very well on Tuesday night into tournament winners in 4 days?
We try to just do the best we can. Well,
obviously it's pretty good. Yeah. Whatever you do, can you write it down? Because I'd love to understand how to do this.
I mean, we do the same thing every time. So my framework hasn't changed since 2014. Some nooks and crannies and details and stuff we have, but like the practice structure of what we do from the day we show up to the day we get back really hasn't changed much. And then we do the same thing in terms of teaching at our camps. So if we have a core group of like 8 kids on a tour who've come up through the U16 program and played together, and I think it's a function of that. I think it's a function of player identification. I think we have the organization itself does a really good job, I think, in terms of just identifying the best kids. And then, just a matter of like the coaching staff. We know each other well. I know Greg Shore really well. I got Keith McLean and Marsh Pennington, who are Atlantis coaches. We kind of just do this, like we don't change the formula, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So does that mean you're kind of selecting players who fit the plan as opposed to potentially? I mean, so working with a much smaller club, and I've talked with my other, the other coaches. We get a group of kids in a particular school group or a particular age group, and we plan our game strategy around those kids because that's what we have. I mean, so
Right.
it almost sounds like you work it the other way around, or am I reading too much into it?
No. Yes. So that's the other thing. You're right. We're getting kids from disparate areas, and sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 kids that we really, were recruited by coaches out of the area that I'm just meeting for the first time because I know this guy can identify talent. So yeah, we'll adapt what we do to the team that we have, but we have a certain kind of couple core things that we always do, regardless, that I think helps kids just recognize space and do what they have to do in terms of just being successful.
Yeah, because you mentioned it, and I appreciate I'm hogging the air that I know Kate wanted to ask you a few questions, so apologies, Kate. You mentioned earlier about helping kids understand the transition from being a great athlete to being a great player. Can you expand on that? Because I think that's a great concept.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it's about, so we're getting to this level, right? The pass catch, like they have to be able to pass, catch, cut. Like there's certain things they have to be able to do, or else they're non-functional at that level. So once you get them there, then it's a matter of saying, let's talk about decision making. Like, what are the choices in front of you? What do you see? What are we trying to do with the ball in attack? What are we trying to do in defense in terms of shutting them down? And what decisions can you make? That's really what you're constantly talking to them about and questioning them about is decision making, right? You're hopefully not dealing with kids that you got to if you have to teach a kid how to catch and pass and all that stuff at this level, then it's just not, he shouldn't be there, right?
Right.
So you can spend that time, you got 4 full days between, 2 practice sessions, a couple film sessions, team meetings, and you've got games, you got post-game meetings, you've got, in this day and age, it's not that hard to throw up an iPad, record your game, and have that thing up on YouTube, and the kids are watching that, or Sports U or something. You get instant video feedback. There's just constantly kind of going back and looking at what are the decisions we're making? What can you do better? Was this an effort choice? Was this just a poor choice, even though the effort was there? That kind of stuff.
Okay. No, very interesting. Thank you, Kate. The mic is yours.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a different question now after this, because I'm intrigued by do kids get do you guys provide feedback at the end of a tournament weekend? Would you?
Yeah, I try.
And something to work on.
We try, but I'll be honest with you, the best I can is a couple phone calls here and there. I do have a primary job as an English teacher.
Totally fair.
So it's really about trying to develop a relationship with the kids as best you can. But it's once the tournaments are done, we'll talk. We have one-on-one meetings with them. But from a formal standpoint, no, there's not we're not as formal, I guess, in that sense.
And if they're watching footage of themselves too throughout the weekend, then they're definitely getting that feedback throughout as well. So that sounds amazing.
That's the thing. It's like we'll throw it up there and all right, take a look at that. Reconvene half an hour. Boom, bang. What do you see? What decisions could you make? What can you do different? Looking at kind of picking out 2 or 3 key things in a game we can kind of fix. And the kids are good. It's really about the trick of it is getting the kids to become empowered, because I'm not playing, and as much as you can talk to and tell somebody something, that doesn't translate into learning. Than these kids taking some ownership, right? You talk about high performance. Well, it's about self-responsibility, right? and it's about the kids recognizing as a team and what are the things I can do as an individual? What do I do as a team? How do we make us better? And that's the mental piece that we could really try to think about.
That's one of my top 2 or 3 things about rugby. That as a coach, the most relaxing part of the time with the kids, plus the most stressful, is during the game, because there's nothing you can do. Once the kickoff's on, everything your job is finished until half time, when you can go talk to them again.
Right, and
it's all down to the kids.
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about identification. And what I mean is, let's say I'm a parent, and I have a kid, and I've heard about Atlantis, and maybe we're in that area, or just looking to see what a good fit, we feel it's a good fit. Um, what what can I do as a parent to involve my kid in Atlantis, so that my kid gets identified and put into the pool and has a chance to go out there? So what are like, if you're gonna give me 3 parents, the one that just did everything wrong, the one that tried but you can work with them, and the one that, like, they must have been getting notes from somebody as to the perfect, they lined up everything perfectly to put their kid in a situation where they can be really well evaluated.
I mean, I think number one, you wouldn't have the kid would want to do it, not the parent.
True.
So
True. Yeah.
if it's about the parent, I mean, at the end of the day, we're looking for kids, like, in terms of a 40-meter time, we're looking at 5.1, 5 flat. We do a Bronco test. We're looking for that. A couple of different variations. One's a length test. We're looking for it under 25 or 25 or more. Other one will be 5 flat on a Bronco. So they need to be fit. And sometimes there's kids, no matter what they do, like if they're not within a certain parameter from a speed standpoint and a fitness standpoint, fitness even more important, then we won't even look at them from that standpoint. And then once they're fit enough, then we look at them. All right, what position they play? Can they pass catch, the tackle, the attitude, all that sort of stuff? That's when we kind of look at the film and stuff like that.
So what I'm hearing from you is, and your point is very well made. This is not something the parent wants, or should not be driven entirely by what the parent wants. So let's say, the kid really wants it, and the parent's going to do everything they can to make sure that they are identified by Atlantis. So I'm hearing Bronco test. So either coaches or the parent somehow has to be able to administer this test, and have film. Those are those the 2 things that I heard from you, are help you figure out if this is somebody that is a good fit for Atlantis, film and these tests, these results.
If I have fitness times, if I have speed times, if I have a copy of a game, not a highlight film so much as a game, that's a good place to start. And then if we can't see them in a camp and those sorts of things, and then what we try to do is within wherever the kid happens to be, if we can get somebody out to see him and that sort of stuff. But yeah, those are kind of the things we're looking for. And even without it, at the end of the day, like we're never going to know, right? So it's really a matter of an opportunity that presents itself. We have our primary areas of recruitment, and then secondary and tertiary. And sometimes it's a kid got hurt late, or we have an open position late for a tour, and we're looking for an athlete, and find a kid an opportunity.
Really, I really like your point though about, I'm sorry, just to circle back, your point about the kid being the one that kind of leads the process. And I understand maybe where you were going with that, Daniel, about like, obviously there needs to be some parental or coaching support. But this idea that like as a coach or a parent, we could be turning to that interested player and saying, hey, that email should come from you. You should be doing the follow-up. Like those are the kinds of things that make a difference in getting yourself taken seriously. That might not be feedback I would normally give. And that makes so much sense now that you say that out loud.
Absolutely, and that's what I mean. I'm taking what Jack is saying and trying to figure out, get as much of Atlantis from Jack, and then also kind of shine the light on myself and what are the things that Jack is bringing me awareness that maybe I'm falling short on, like and now I'm not I don't coach the right age group, um, but so I'll ask some of the other coaches here, how many of you administer these conditioning tests? And do you keep track of the 40 meters? Do you have time during the season and practices to do something of the sort? So
I mean,
like,
for
I
my
do.
stance, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Sorry, I do at the high school, but
okay, is that something that a lot of high school that is just sort of standard at the high school level? Everybody does that? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if everyone does it,
Okay.
but and I wouldn't say that it's the most. I don't use it in any way to make any kind of coaching selection decision. Use it as a tool to demonstrate like growth, if that makes sense.
So,
Right.
It makes total
yeah, it's
sense.
something to think about. I mean, it's the fitness test to me is always much more important because we only see the kids for a few hours at a camp. When I coach the team, like I would do it as like almost as a conditioning workout or like a workout here and there, maybe every couple of weeks. But when
Yeah,
you do it every day, you know who the heck they are. Um, that being said, it's a benchmark for the kids to think about. You want to go play for life. This is where these kids are when they show up.
I think that's awesome having those metrics and those benchmarks just available, and to know what you guys are looking for in particular, because I mean I'm just kind of breaking into the high school scene. I have a few high school players, and we're kind of really trying to get it together, but it's just having, because we're going to be conditioning anyways, we're going to be running things anyways, so just to have that, to dangle that fruit in front of them, is both helpful, and to know that, so we can, we can have those numbers as well. It's great. So
Yeah. Hey, folks, I've been saving up a lot of comments and questions here for a while. I hope I can remember them all. One notion that you actually put in my head, Daniel, on the Bronco. I do think it's a good idea, actually. I think kids who are aware of what a Bronco is would be able to pace themselves a little bit better, and it is a measurable thing that somebody could get better at every year. It is not out of the question at all to actually put that on our list of things to help our athletes come along, whether they want to be identified by Atlantis or not. But and another thing that we've seen is that almost every ID camp involves a Bronco. That is like the most common test run. That one and the 40 are the most common tests that are done. So it's probably better to get our athletes exposed to it more and more frequently. So one note to so a long quite a while back, we asked a question about the girls U14 program, in having having a kid that was a girls U14. They're really Atlantis would probably be one of the first teams in the country that would be able to field a U14 girls program. I don't think they have a problem doing it. They just wouldn't have anybody to play, right? So there's no U14 girls brackets in any tournaments yet. I'd imagine once there is one, I'd expect that Atlantis would be able to fulfill that. And then finally, I want to mention, I'd love it if Atlantis could come up to Boston to have an ID clinic or something like that. But you mentioned earlier, Jack, about this camp that you run every fall. It's a really big camp. It is not that far for us to drive. It may seem far from our northeast, for us people in the northeast, but Philadelphia, Wilmington area is only a 5 or so hour drive. It is possible to go there. Maybe it helps if you hadn't already explained like what happens at that camp, and is it worthwhile, and do you have folks that are driving 4 or 5 hours away to attend those camps in the fall?
We do, yeah. We have players as far as Charlotte, North Carolina, which is 8 or 9 hours away, are coming up. So that camp in the fall, original camp, and we've kind of always run that as our kind of flagship one. But basically, it's 8 to around 3:30 in the afternoon. We kids check in, we do some fitness times, do a dynamic warm up, and the whole morning spent doing just teaching 7's. We do station work. While that's going on, obviously kids are getting evaluated. So we'll have coaches running stations, then coaches with clipboards, sort of just watching kids. Little break for lunch, chalk talk, and then we just play in the afternoon, 1 to 3. So we'll film the games, and same thing. We have coaches coaching and coaches evaluating, and then just looking to kind of pick kids from there. And then, more recently we've done, like I said, the ID camps, which they're about 4 hours long, kind of a condensed version of that. But yeah, we'd love to come up. Just tell us when and get us a field, and we'll.
Yeah, we got a field. We'll figure out the time when we can do it. I'd love to have it.
Perfect.
Thing to just add or like supplement a point that you made earlier, Jack, was about how like regional teams can still feed into Atlantis. I actually had a player that played for the Northeast Academy 7's side, New York 7's, and she applied to Atlantis for the spring tournaments and got selected for one that was supposed to be in April, I think.
Yeah, it's probably.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously that didn't happen. But like, I didn't even know that was possible, and she was like, "Yeah, I just want to play more 7." So it is something that continues to be. You can play it locally and use that as a springboard.
There's two things. Number one, there's no rules in terms of who you can play for. But that being said, we're not trying to steal players from anybody either. Atlantis we do what we do. We go to these NAHS 7's tournaments, and that's our kind of biggest thing. And our second biggest thing, we like to think we have pretty decent coaching and can teach the kids and give them some opportunities. But other than that, we're not trying to, like I said, compete or anything like that. It's just a matter of player development, getting kids more time.
More rugby that kids can be playing, and with different people and hearing different coaches, that just makes stronger athletes and stronger rugby IQ.
Absolutely. I'm loving hearing these opportunities that exist out there. I literally did not know that there were so many just fantastic options out there. I'm living under my own rock and in my own universe. It's just amazing to hear all these things, and what a dream to be playing for your club or your school, to be associated with an academy, and then to go to a selection camp. To be able to then go on a tour. I mean, it's just. I mean, obviously, you don't. I'm not recommending that. We stuff rugby down the throats of youth. But if for the right the right players, the right kids, it's a dream come true. It's the options and possibilities are just. This is fantastic. This is really 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 cool. Chris, I cut you off.
Oh, I might have lost it. Keep going.
That's fine. So Chris, taking it a slightly different direction. The 7's game is a lot of fun. It's flashy. I had a lot of fun with it. I don't play it very much. I never played it at a very high level at all. But it's very different than 15's. And now with the Olympics and the fact that you can actually see, it's easy to see it now. It's more approachable. Are there factors that have made, 7's become more common? Are you feeling a wave? Are you seeing more kids coming? Because as you said earlier, it's a game of numbers, right? If you get more players to your camps, you can select, the players that fit best into your plan, and therefore you're probably going to be more successful. Are you seeing, where are you seeing 7's? Is it, are kids knocking down your doors to try to join?
Oh, that was for Jack, not
Oh
me.
yeah, that was
but,
for Jack.
But,
Yeah.
but what my perspective is that that kids are, But by the way, I know you didn't ask me, but you started off with my name. So what I will say, I remembered you reminded me what I was going
Good.
to say earlier,
Excellent. Great.
Daniel, which is that one of the things about Atlantis that's really attractive is that and it really is the best players in the, it has been the best players in the country. It is like the next level, and because of that, it just seems like it can, maybe it looks easy from where we're sitting, Jack, but it just seems like the recruiting just happens magically. People want to be a part of Atlantis because success breeds success, and if you are in the top tier of players, you want to play with the top tier players. So I mean, I'm answering the question that was intended for you, but let me
Yeah.
know if that resonates with you.
No, I hope we can continue doing it. I think we do a really good job of player selection. It's just sort of one of those things that it's, we started off really well. We started off with the boys. It was actually U19. So my first team in Vegas was actually 6 kids who were freshmen in college. Now they were 18 years old, but it wasn't dealing with just high school. And then when we switched to just high school a few years back, that's kind of when we started just trying to find the best kids. And there's 12 other teams or however many other teams are out there. So I've always had the belief like it's only 7's. You only have 12 kids. There is no best 12. It doesn't exist. The country's too big. There's probably a best 60, right? Or 70. So
Yeah.
you only got to find 12 of them, and then you got to coach them up, and it's whatever combination. And we've won like 3 tournaments since 2014, like won them outright, and finished second and third a bunch of times and stuff. But competitive, which is fun.
Yeah, that's well said.
Absolutely. So, we're facing funny times right now. I think everybody was really excited for the season this year, the Olympics, professional rugby, at least in the Northeast. Everybody was really revved up. And now we're trying to find ways of being able to stay relevant, trying to find ways of being able to keep the community moving forward, keep people engaged in rugby and keep rugby growing. Um, are there and obviously for an organization that focuses on touring, in bringing players together, that's got to be kind of tough. And I don't want to turn this into a downer. I just want to find out, are there things that you're finding success in this time? Are there things that players that want to be in the pool, that want to stay, want to learn more about Atlantis? Are there things that you guys are doing, that people can turn to stay, energized in rugby?
Honestly, with Atlantis, there's nothing. We're not doing anything publicly right now. We're doing a lot of kind of behind the scenes organizational stuff and kind of taking a step back and kind of reorganizing ourselves, basically, just from a media standpoint and a technology standpoint. Just because I'm a school teacher and I just don't see anything coming back anytime soon. Like not in terms of bringing kids from all over the country together in an airplane and putting them in a hotel room. So right now we're getting I'm looking forward to 2021 at this point and getting ourselves organized so that as soon as everything kind of lets go, we can get off and running. Skylar, are you still there? At the high school kid?
Yeah, I'm still here.
What do you think?
I've only done one. I did the fall camp last year and then played in New York. And that's sort of the extent of my knowledge with Atlantis. I don't.
Yeah, but I mean, what can anybody do
I can
right
say
now?
it was a good team. Wait, what? What are you telling? Sorry, my dad.
I was repeating the question. Like, what do when are kids gonna get back? When are kids gonna get back at it?
I mean, I don't know. And it's different between states because Atlantis is in like a select side team, so I don't know. Like, I mean, Massachusetts has stuff back right now. It's not full. It's not contact, but
right.
I mean, it's stuff that's happening.
Yeah, you're right, but it's hard to do across state lines.
Yeah.
It's been an ongoing thread for all of these podcast is the impact of COVID and when can we back? Can we get back? What does it look like if we get back? So it will end, but when is the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and the kid's not going to all of a sudden come off of COVID having done no training and be fit. It's going to take them a few months just to get themselves back in game shape.
Well, the good news is that's true of the whole country. So, we'll just have a slower game of 7's for a while until they'll get fit again.
Yeah.
That's true. So right now my club is doing some like very limited fitness training. And I just want to tell you, Jack, that this is going to have an impact because I'm definitely making these kids run Broncos for a good part of the session. Skylar herself was complaining about not enough fitness, so
there you go.
We love you, Shaggy.
You are having an impact as we speak.
Fantastic. Jack, I'm going to borrow a page from Alan's book, and we'll ask the question that he always he always asks, and that is, Jack, is there anything that we didn't ask? Is there something that we missed that you want to make sure that we get a chance to learn about and find out and maybe ask you questions about?
No, I mean, I think understand Atlantis. Like I'm coming at it from my perspective as I run the high school boys program. That's only one part of Atlantis. There's the high school girls program, similar to the boys, but they do some different things. We have a U23 program out of Philadelphia, sponsored by Schuylkill River Rugby. We have a men's and women's adult program as well. So we're still trying to kind of funnel athletes there. So it's a kind of big organization. The youth side of it, I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, you understand that all of these academies and select side stuff and going on tour, at the end of the day, it should be a worthwhile experience. Don't think you're going to get a scholarship or any money whatsoever to play rugby in college anywhere. You'll get money for getting good grades, and it might help, but other than that, if you're not doing it because you like it, it's not worth doing.
Absolutely. So I think we're starting to run a little long here. Does anybody have any let's do any rapid fire questions for Jack, and any last questions that we may have for him? Anybody have any, Chris? Any questions we didn't get at from your list?
No, I got them all. And I don't want to keep us too long. You know how long we can get.
Yes, we can go too long. Exactly. Kate, did I cut you off?
Well, I feel like now sufficiently shamed since Chris just said he didn't want to go to. I'm just kidding.
Oh, no.
I do have a question actually. It's just if there was one thing that you wish more kids showed up to these camps or to a select, to a tournament, one skill, one concept that you think more kids should be aware of before they even get to you, what would that be?
That's tough. It's not tough. The pass catch has to be spot on. Now you have to be fit, and if you're not fit, it's you might as well not show up. But that's kind of like showing up at school without shoes on. But the biggest differentiator is the pass catch. That's the piece. If they can do that, then you can teach them the skills around that. If you're focusing on that, it's an issue.
Awesome.
Maybe so Kate, you inspired me to have this go a little long. We actually did answer my question, but maybe not in a concise little bundle, which is how do let's say we have a kid, a boy who we think is right for Atlantis. They need something else. They need to go be a part of NAHS. They need to play with some of the best kids in the country. How do we get them connected? And we talked about a lot of different things we could do, but what is it that we do to get a kid connected into Atlantis?
Email me or call me. Have his coach give me a Bronco time, 40-meter time, and a game film. and then give me his coach's telephone number. And usually what we'll do is with kids out that we haven't seen directly, we'll call his coach, we'll take a look at film, put them on the list, and kind of go from there.
Good deal. Yeah, like I said, I know we said it, but I don't wanted to package it up because that's a big output.
Number one, get to a camp. But if we don't have a camp, email me directly, give me his specs and coach's number.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Fantastic. Any last questions? We've taken a lot of Jack's time, but anything else we want to know about Atlantis?
No,
Fantastic.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, Jack,
Thank
really
you.
want to thank you. Sorry, I cut somebody else off. Yeah, Jack, I think I cut people off in letting you know how appreciative we are taking time letting us know about Atlantis as coaches. We're doing everything we can to prepare these kids to enjoy rugby, to be successful at rugby, and part of that is keeping in mind these things. Run the Broncos, get these stats, have some film ready, so that if we do have a couple of players or whatever that want to be able and are gifted enough, are lucky enough, are blessed enough to be able to take rugby to the next level. Not only should we be preparing them with the skills, but also the tools that they need to be able to be identified and be able to fall into the fold into somebody else's program that can bring them even farther. So again, thank you so much for your time, folks. Do we want to do some news, or are we we've been here long enough and want to be able to wrap it up?
Well, I think I think it's fine to do some news.
Yeah,
I think it's
It's-
important we do some news. We haven't newsed for a while, have we?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't
Are
exactly.
you sure
have
you
no-
want to start this?
I have no idea what's going on outside my four walls right now.
So the challenge, of course, is like news, punchy, succinct.
I mean, I have news. I have news from the past 2 months, but I'm not sure you want to get me started on that while we're still taking Jack's time.
Well,
For a kid,
I can do the news while I put my kids to bed. So
yeah, Jack, you're welcome to stay for this. Thank you for your time. We are gonna devolve into news and in a little bit of back and forth banter, probably banter. And Skylar, I definitely want to know if Skylar knows any news about any new puppies or any new birthdays or anything of that sort. So, Skylar, why don't you hit us with a couple of things, and if there's rugby overseas or something, you want to let us know, that'd be great.
Oh, I have all of the everything. I've got the one thing that I've been needing to say since about June, that the HSBC World 7 Series, the final 4 tournaments in Hong Kong, Singapore, London, and Paris have all officially been cancelled.
Ooh.
They're not relegating anybody. Usually, there's 15 core teams plus the extra, and usually whoever's in 15th, gets kicked out essentially at the end of the season, and someone else gets promoted from the Challenger Series. So because the series didn't finish, no one's getting relegated, but Japan is getting promoted because they won. They got the most points from the first 2 Challenger Series, 2 of 3. So next season we'll have 16 core teams. But on the next year, the 2020-2021 season, the first 2 tournaments in Dubai and Cape Town have also been cancelled, and that was like last week that they announced that.
Wow.
Not sure what that means for the rest of the season, but that has happened, and I've been meaning to say that for a while. And then I have all of the Super Rugby Aotearoa news. If you want my takes on all of those games, which I don't think you all do, because I will talk for hours about that.
Yeah, I think that's a bit too
Yeah,
much.
let's
Yeah,
hold off
exactly.
on that.
We can have a whole episode on me talking about professional rugby.
Listen, I don't mean to encourage tangential ranting, but you did threaten us with something about Wales 7's, and I'm very intrigued now.
See, so anyone who knows me knows that I have my 5 favorite country teams in New Zealand, Ireland, Argentina, Scotland, and Wales. And Wales 7's happen to be at the bottom of the 7 series. So had they not gotten enough points in the remaining 4 tournaments, Wales would have gotten relegated. I would not have been happy about that. I love Wales. And so I go to LA 7's. We went to LA this past year. We went to Las Vegas the 2 years before that. And just so I would have been very disappointed if they weren't there, and then also sort of me being a rugby nerd and watching a ridiculous amount of Wales games, and I'm gonna not go on a rant about any players. And there's also a very good chance that it was the avoiding of mentioning people's birthdays that no one's ever heard of. So I'm gonna shut my mouth before I give you random useless fun facts about Owen Jenkins.
Kate, does that answer the question, or did you want to go into further detail on anything?
No, that was great.
You want my random nerdy knowledge on Wales?
No, that was. I feel like we got our feet wet there, and I'll learn a little more as we go.
Not even close.
Fantastic. I have a question. We keep circling back every episode onto what's going on with COVID and what's going on in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and what's going on with the USA Rugby. Have any significant changes or anything of the sort taken place or with USA Rugby? Okay.
Yeah. They're still up in the air.
Sorry, Shaggy. Sorry, I just remembered. The new registration, right? There's a new. If I'm remembering correctly.
The sport Lomo is online. I mean, it's a great. Lomo is a great. So we're just. Myro is just given the logins to all the coaches or all representatives of the mass clubs to start messing around with the system, and we're going to be open for registration as soon as USA Rugby gets back on track for next season, because obviously, so for the remainder of the season, obviously we're officially in Massachusetts, we're officially not taking registration. So until what would be the end of August, September 1st would be the new registration cycle. But USA Rugby still they're still dealing with their demons of their reorganization, especially with this youth and high school division, and figuring out the exact numbers on registration costs and implementing the insurances. So things are still up in the air, but we have access to the system, and the Sport Lomo system that we have access to on the state level. So every club has access to this, leaps and bounds ahead of everyone putting together, their own registration on their own spreadsheets and stuff. It's a great system. It was put together by the Ireland rugby squad, or for the Ireland rugby squad, and is basically taken over the scene internationally as a registration and competition developing medium. So it has a lot of upside. And I think it's really going to help us, get our registration straight in, and hopefully allow clubs to more easily coordinate games. And I was hearing through the grapevine that there's going to be a system online through it that's going to help us write up our brackets for our tournaments. So that's a huge weight off administrators. There's lots of good things with it. But like I said, so we're still in limbo. And there's really no rush, it seems, from the national side to get registration online, just because competition isn't really going to happen at least at the very beginning of the fall from their standpoint.
Shaggy,
but,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is this, just to clarify, it sounds like this replaces sipping, correct?
No, this is going to tie into the SIP process. So,
okay.
So Sports Loan was just going to be a front end for registration. So
It
what it is,
replaces WebPoint. Remember the web point system where you could look up SIPs and you register
Oh,
directly with USA Rugby. But sorry, Shaggy, I'm jumping over you, but the benefit that Sport Lomo brings is it allows you to build up facets all the way down. So they have it at USA Rugby level. Then they have for us as a youth non-MIA size, there's a Miro SGB level. Then we have a club level, so we can register our kids directly with our club and charge our fees. And there's built-in methodologies for the fees to go to Miro and to USA Rugby as well.
awesome.
Oh, I didn't
So
realize that. The Sports Lomo is all the way up to USA Rugby. I actually thought
That's
that they were
right.
two different ones. Oh, that's
No,
really
it's supposed to be a single crank. So Chris as rugby dad of many rugby kids in multiple different clubs,
yes.
your task is going to be significantly less painful than it has been previously. They're not painless.
theory, yeah, in
I'm
theory.
sure. But
Right.
but the nice thing is, I mean, again, we've all been through this. You know, you've got Bean Pot and Bay State, and it's the scramble to get all the SIPs and all that stuff together so you can present your forms and are the kids registered properly and did the checks clear. That all that excitement should just go away. Your kids registered with your club, you're registered with USA Rugby.
Yeah. So I mean, so the main thing is it creates a registration that's the same for everyone. So every parent is going to have to go on the site and register, right? And however that team deals with payment is up to that team. Like they can charge, they can just add a price on the Sports Lomo site, and that money will be given directly to the team, or they can forego that and get paid by a check or whatever. But that everyone's gonna go on the site and register directly, and they'll directly, like, straight away get their SIP, get placed on a team. Right, it'll be right in front. It'll be like right there, right in front of them, as soon as they press enter. In theory, all that information will be online. The SIPs will be online. Everything will be, right up. Relegated to each team, and each team, will be relegated to each governing body, bracket or a list. So it's just a way of just foregoing all of our craziness of all of us administrators taking out our notebooks and trying to figure out who did what, and making sure everything's in, and then it's just a rational way of doing business, really.
It's awesome.
So
I have had
it
my
helps
fair
us.
share of like weird spreadsheets right before a tournament, so this is great.
Yeah.
I think you can request to keep the weird spreadsheets if you want, though. I mean, from memory's sake, I have mine all pre-formed and everything, just ready to go. Just to populate the kids' names in, and we're off.
All right, and with that, I think we've reached the end of the podcast.
No way! Are
no.
you kidding? You're not gonna let me do news? I can save
Oh.
her shout outs.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, we forgot to do shout outs and we never let Jack participate in that. That was a real oversight. Chris, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I got it. A couple of things that are relevant. Actually, just maybe today or yesterday, it's so interesting and coincidental that USA Rugby is now looking for feedback on their national, high performance programs. So I saw a bunch of tweets from USA Rugby saying, "Give us feedback on the performance pathways for the USA." And we are now so educated that maybe we can add some value if you so wanted. That's one of the big news is in the USA Rugby, and while they're at it, there has been some other news that I'll forgo, but Free Jacks, first of all, the Free Jacks continue to have camps and clinics. Kudos to them, figuring out, doing their best to make it happen.
Yeah.
I know that it's questionable. It's difficult times during COVID to make it happen. The turnout's been sporadic, but at least they're trying, and I gotta applaud folks for trying to for still sticking with it and trying to develop youth rugby even through these tough times. But Skylar neglected to mention the Free Jacks new signings.
I avoided this because this would have only added on to my rant about 7's, and
Okay,
I've avoided.
I'll hand it then. I'll handle it then.
Okay, you're gonna handle it, but I like this guy.
Yeah. So first of all, if you hadn't seen last week, the Free Jacks signed Actually, I should get the name so I get it. He is capped with South Africa as well.
Blitzbox.
So sorry, that was the Durban Sharks, not the South Shore Sharks they signed it from. I
Sea
just wanna
Sharks.
clarify.
Yes,
the Sharks.
Durban, South Africa.
Yeah.
South Sea.
South
South Sea. It's
South
not quite
Sea
the
sounds
South
a
Sea
lot
either, is
like
it?
South Shore, right? Right.
Southern
That's
Hemisphere
I don't
Sharks.
know.
that's their name now. So anyway, so that's a really big signing. We're talking about a captain of a Super League team with a ton of caps and including international 7's player. Really big signing for the Free Jacks. And then they followed up with it just yesterday with, and
I
this
saw
is
this
where,
morning.
yeah,
But yeah,
yesterday.
recently, within a day.
Yeah, the Scottish very excited that a Scottish international was just signed, and she can hardly contain herself. I'm asking her to hold back her excitement. Dougie Fife from Scotland, he did play Scotland 7's. He
Scotland 7's, Edinburgh. I'll shut my mouth now.
and
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, and he very well may be featured in the rugby watch party this weekend, because we all need to meet Dougie Fife and what
Be
he
able
brings
to
to the
tell him
table.
useless fun facts about himself. Will be relevant someday.
Mm.
I think I'm going to leave it at that, Daniel. Those are big news. Big news for the week.
All right, so one more thing for us old people. So Boston Touch is. I just joined. I went to one of their training sessions this past Sunday, and it was awesome. It was a little bit of rugby conditioning, for adults, so not necessarily youth rugby focused, but administrators gotta get out there and sweat sometimes too. So I'd highly recommend it if anyone wants to take a nice ride and hang out on the Charles
Well,
River.
Yeah, Shaggy, I had, when you mentioned this, maybe you might have briefly mentioned it last week. I looked it up and I couldn't find any information about them on Twitter or Facebook or BostonTouch.com. Like, how do you find out about it?
Well, I found them on Facebook. There's not a lot out there. They're a small group, which is good, and it's confusing. So there's Boston Touch and there's Boston Touch Rugby, and they're two totally separate groups, and they do not like each other. So
Wow.
obviously, because people get confused with the names, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to go to one expecting the other. So my advice: go. You can, I can put up a link on my Facebook or something. You can check it out. But it's they're doing things via Facebook. They have a online COVID waiver, and that's all you really need to do to show up. Just fill out the waiver. There's no charge, and it's like an hour of just semi, pretty light to moderate conditioning with passing and stuff. It's you gotta run in a mask, which is fine, because it's not like super intense. But good to get a ball in the hand and to get out, and it's a really nice place to hang out for an hour on a Sunday. Right on, like I said, it's right on the Charles River there.
No, that's really cool, Shaggy. One thing is that I'm really looking for something like that. Not now. I'm not looking for it now personally. During these times, I don't need it. But it's I was just wondering why we didn't have more get-togethers where we can go out and just run some touch, like I have in other rugby communities in my life. So I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's available. And as we get through COVID, I hope to make it out there.
And you know what? I'm really, really, really high on bringing the adult touch rugby community into the fold of one of our tournaments or something to introduce the greater world to our parents, administrators, and even older players. So, we were looking for an alternative for the kids transitioning from flag to something else if they weren't weren't comfortable with transitioning to tackle. And touch rugby, it's a sport. They get a World Cup. So,
Yeah.
it's all good. Like I like it. It's fun. It's still the community. So I'd like to, we should be making those pathways clear if they're available. But that's all I got. Good times. Come on out.
Yeah, good.
Fantastic.
I have additional news that nobody cares about it. I was told to avoid it, but
now we got to hear it.
Oh, now we got to.
I agree.
I didn't think of it until after we talked about the Doogie 5 thing, but the Crusaders lost their first home match in over 4 years. That's notable because they lost to the Hurricanes, who were the last team to beat them 4 years ago.
About time, I think, is probably
Wow.
the right statement
Yeah,
there.
36 home games in a row, unbeaten.
Wow.
Last loss was in 2016 against the Hurricanes, up until last week.
Wow, that
2
is
weeks ago, wasn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah.
It was actually a great game. I'm gonna not
Score.
rant about it
Score,
because
Skylar.
my dad's making faces at me.
What was the final score?
34-32.
All right, good game.
ooh, high
Good.
scoring. Wow.
Daniel, you obviously haven't watched 15s recently. That's about where scores are going nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Even in the the grim north of the hemisphere where it's rainy and miserable, all the time playing rugby, they're banging in, mid 20s through low 40s often in games.
That's true. That's why it's a lot of fun to watch. Absolutely, you're right. All right, are we ready for shoutouts?
I think we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
Steve.
So I think I'm going to take what might be an easy one here, but I'm giving my shout out to Atlantis, not just for being on the show today, but and I'm a little biased with Atlantis. I've been around Atlantis for. I mean, my first tour with Atlantis, never as a player, of course, was 1988. To show you how old I am too. But I've been on a couple tours as a fan, just kind of watching when my dad coached. And the philosophy they've always had with Rugby Sevens has been kind of what Jack talked about, developing players, whether it was initially developing just American Rugby Sevens and then working quickly to develop the women's side and working to develop touring together, men's and women's sides. And seeing that they're bringing that to youth rugby as well with a great philosophy and their record really does go to show they win partly through their great philosophy of developing players, certainly finding good fit boys and girls that want to play, but bring them together, get them to function as a team quickly and working on them as they go through their system. So I think it's great what they're doing for youth rugby. And I look forward to, all of us in New England taking a bit of Jack's advice. I know our club hasn't been doing it, but doing some fitness testing and videoing and try to get some New England players in front of Atlantis.
Yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with this because my highlight has usually been Super Rugby teams, so I can go with the Hurricanes for ending the Crusaders' unbeaten home run, or highlight the games this weekend. But my dad's still making faces at me, and I need to shut up.
So my shout outs just to all these to all these guests that we've had on this podcast and to you, Daniel. I think what's going on this podcast is awesome. Rugby had such momentum coming into this year, and it's great to hear. And well, yeah, what happened, right? So we're on hold, and it's great to hear people's views and development theories on the sport, as and keeping everyone motivated and fresh, breaking out of this, and getting us everyone. It's great to hear everyone working in unison. All these academies, all these select sides. I really didn't know anything about any of them, and they're all working. With either by design or not, they all are working independently but together. No one's conflicting. They're just creating further opportunities for the kids, and it's just great to understand that the rugby world that's here and that's developing. So shout out to the community at large.
Yeah, I agree with everyone's shout outs here. Mine is a little perhaps strange, but I feel like I've been following social media accounts of different teams and players on teams that I appreciate through this entire COVID situation. And one of them, I've been really loving the Black Ferns, New Zealand's 7's programs. Instagram account, and then some of the players that feed into that, and they've had some funny podcast moments. And I've really appreciated that in the absence of play. I mean, it's kind of dying down now since they're all getting back to training. But in the absence of competition, I think so many players found ways to kind of connect with the rugby community at large. And I think that's been so great. As is this podcast, connecting to the rugby community in New England at large, and just making us all more informed and kind of having some fun. So yeah, I've been appreciating that.
And I'm going to dovetail on the sentiment that Kate had, and my shout out goes out to Stephen, and that is for bringing Atlantis to us, and basically what that represents, and what that means is we all have vast different experiences in rugby. We have different connections, we have different friendships, we have different ways of coaching it, we have different ways of experiencing and being in rugby. And when we come together, and we bring along our experiences and share them with other people, in this case, even sharing Atlantis with us, it just makes it helps me remember why it is that this sport has been so great to me, so much fun, because of these experiences that you acquire through your road in rugby, and now we're having a chance to sort of like bring them in and share them with everybody. So I love going to that barbecue where different people bring different weird beers, and I get to taste a different one. When you go to picnic and everybody brings their different weird dishes, and in this case is having different people being able to bring their rugby experience or little nuggets that they had, and so my shout out goes out to Stephen for bringing Atlantis to us, because that's the nugget of rugby of experience that he was able to share with us. So that's that.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to.
Okay. Trying to think of a delicate way to bring this up. I think I'm going to give my shout out to Squidge Rugby. He was also featured this weekend. He's a vlogger, blogger, podcaster. And yeah, and he's been putting out really good videos for the past couple of years about rugby, and he's continued on to make his own podcast and featured on another pretty big podcast coming out of Wales, Blood and Mud. Today he released a video on the MLR. So really, really good sort of if you have Squidge making a video about the MLR, it continues the legitimization of the league, and it was a really good video. A lot of folks liked it. You might well check it out. I'm also using this opportunity to also say that Squidge has been really on the forefront of bringing efforts about social justice to the forefront. He's made a conscious effort to do that in 2020. Regardless of what your opinion is, there's been some really big news on the social justice, the Black Lives Matter type conversations that we had a few months back, and most recently, the World Rugby has put out a ruling on transgender women playing rugby. I don't actually. There's no way we could do a whole podcast on it. There's no way that I'm going to do it justice, except for to say it's something that we might want to be educated on. Squidge is just one. Squidge Rugby is just one person who's bringing to light and has a reasonably educated opinion on it. There are many other opinions and ways to get your information, but I think it's something that's worth looking into and having a good understanding at, just because it's a relatively controversial point in world rugby this month.
All right, so wrapping it up. So I have 3 thank yous. So and they're all loosely related. I want to start by thanking Tristan Schuyler, who have week in, week out provided me with entertainment on rugby, commentary, thoughts, opinions at the watch parties, and it's now become a private affair for the 3 of us, and other people don't seem to be welcome, but you are really. And now we're not watching England lose every time we watch a game. It's become quite entertaining.
That's what the shout out's for.
That's what it's really about.
You watched England lose, or three times. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. In a row. The second shout out is a little more tangential, but ends up being quite relevant, and it's to my friend Peter, who supplied me with a case of Trillium for doing a little bit of legal work for him, and that's kept me lubricated during many of these rugby games that I'm watching with the Cuddies.
Yes.
And the third one actually plays across a number of comments all of you have made. Is obviously we're in not actually really unprecedented times with COVID. I mean, there's been things like Spanish flu and stuff like that that's preceded. It's had a worldwide impact lasting protracted periods of time. But I want to thank all the people in the high-tech community who've given us all these tools that allow us to do podcasts and sit and chat and watch videos together. Because back in the 1920s, 1918 through 1920, when Spanish flu hit, they didn't have any of these things. So all the things that they couldn't do, they really couldn't do. They couldn't even talk about it with a collective crowd like we can here. And so for me, the thank out is to, the thanks is to the people who created Discord, the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, all these other people who've made this possible that we can stay connected and supporting our favorite sport.
Great point.
Well said.
Oh,
Hear,
wow.
hear.
Great point. All right. Well, that said, it's a great way to finish the show. So from all of us, basically just going to say good night to everybody, and we'll see you all next week when we have our next episode, and we'll figure out what the topic will be, and it'll be a surprise to everybody, including me. So everybody.